Good evening and welcome to The Square. Tonight's discussion is going to focus on the 26th Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting, CHOGM, that will take place in June 21st to June 27th this year. Amongst other things, we're going to look at various themes regarding preparations ahead of this meeting and expectations in terms of trade and investments and other topics. And joining us here tonight, we have with us the British High Commissioner in Rwanda, Joe Lomas. Thank you for joining us. Great. We're also joined by Gilbert Mucho, who is here in his capacity as the communications co-lead for CHOGM 2020. Gilbert, great to have you on the show.
Thank you very much.
My name is Denan Pisi, host of The Square, and as always, I'm joined by our resident panelists. We're here with Charles Haber. Charles, we missed you last week. Great to have you
guys too. I was telling Ben earlier on before the show began, I was at a hotel lobby in Nairobi, and I made everybody stop and watch The Square.
Awesome. And Brendan Amato, always a pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank you.
Great. As we always do, before we kick off, any midweek highlights that you'd like to share?
It's difficult to move past COVID and the coronavirus scare. Earlier on, Mucho did tell me before the show began that a few hours ago, the World Health Organization has declared it a pandemic. That's extremely concerning. I'm worried about two things. Number one is, usually Rwanda, we are known for being extremely overzealous. Now, it's a good thing, yes. It's a very good thing, and on a sort of sarcastic note, I am hoping that even after the pandemic has ended, we are going to learn how not to shake everybody's hand.
Yes.
I have
That's
never
going to
gotten to town
for
this,
yes.
that you go to a bar and you're 6 people and the waiter first shakes all of your hands before asking you, Murafatich. The second thing is that the Ministry of Sports has released the instructions to the effect that all sports activities should be put on hold. Now, I'm a cricket fan. I love cricket. When we go out to watch cricket, we will call 40 people spread across the whole of Gahanga Stadium, a huge number. Now, the league, the T20 that was about to begin has been put on hold. Are they also going to ask table tennis and lawn tennis players not to play?
That's
I can
possible.
understand football.
Yes.
I can understand Patriots versus Reg, but they need to, otherwise we wouldn't even be having The Square, for crying out loud. Yes.
Fighting the crowd.
Yes.
Yeah, but you're right. I think what the city of Kigali, or the communiques that are coming out need to be a bit specific on what constitutes a crowd. And, I mean, there's a wedding I know happening this Saturday. Is that going to be cancelled? These are things that...
The wedding definitely has 6, 7 times, 20 times the number of people watching a cricket match.
Yeah. Brenna, any midweek highlight?
It's the same, but
Corona?
Yes. Of course, it's worrying, but I'm a bit optimistic because China has managed to kind of contain it, to the surprise probably of everybody. Of course, China has this problem with information, so whether it's true or not, we will always question it, but at least the numbers are looking good. So hopefully, as more countries begin to take it serious, then we'll perhaps have the measures. I mean, some of these measures are really to ensure
protect
that people, take it serious because, again, if you look at the scale, when it happens, our health systems, I don't think, are ready. So,
I mean, if a country like Italy can shut down completely, I think in the grand scheme of things, these cancellations of sports are really, I think, in people's interests.
Yeah, because it spreads quite quickly.
So anyway, but I think we should have a show on Corona next week, dedicated to it. I know we've been talking about it on The Square, but something dedicated to the show. So, High Commissioner, thank you for joining us.
You're welcome.
Mucho, thank you for joining us. So just to kick off the discussion, if you can just tell us, in general, what is Commonwealth?
What's a Commonwealth?
What's a Commonwealth? And what global value, does it have? Yes.
So, in a nutshell,
it's
54 countries, 2.4 billion people. That's a third of the world's population. It includes the world's largest democracy, India. It includes some of the smallest, most vulnerable island states. So it's a very diverse network. We're joined together by many of our shared values, which are enshrined in the Commonwealth Charter. We share the English language. And then we share a lot of international priorities. And I think the things which are really driving the Commonwealth these days are our focus on things like climate change and trade and gender equality, things where the Commonwealth can really show leadership.
Okay, and to kick off the conversation, now that you've explained to us the Commonwealth and this very important meeting that's taking place in June, the sub-themes for the meeting include governance and rule of law, ICT and innovation, youth, environment and trade. So following the UK-Africa summit that took place, I think the biggest question people want to know is what it brings to the table in terms of trade and investment between the UK and Rwanda, and also the UK and Africa in general. If you can share a bit more.
Sure. So trade has always been a big part of the Commonwealth. And actually, when you look at intra-Commonwealth trade, those figures keep on going up and up. So the sort of things that we focus on are trade facilitation, how to improve trade between Commonwealth nations, how to improve our standards, for example. And so there's a lot of, each time that we sort of meet, there's more and more that we sort of try and take forward. We had the Africa Investment Summit in January in London. Now, not all of the people there, of course, not all of the countries were Commonwealth members, but a good representation from Africa, including Rwanda. And the idea was to demonstrate what the UK can offer in terms of investment and business to support Africa's development. So London is the centre of financial services. It's the place to go to if you're looking for investment or professional services. And so we wanted to bring a number of countries there to sort of really explore the options, to talk to investors and for them to come back and really do business here. As part of CHOGM, they have the Business Forum. And again, I think we'll see lots of interested businesses from around the Commonwealth come to Rwanda, demonstrate what they've got to offer. A good opportunity for Rwanda itself to sort of show, okay, we're here to do business. You've got great business rankings according to the World Bank. So lots of opportunity there, I think, to showcase Rwanda, but also to improve trade more generally across the Commonwealth.
Gilbert, would you like to add to that in terms of expectations, in terms of trade and investment?
Yeah, as the High Commissioner just said, the Commonwealth Business Forum will be one of the 4 forums that will happen prior to the head of government meeting, and it will bring investors, business people from all over the Commonwealth. And one of the key 20 plus sessions to discuss trade as is today, but also opportunities. The African Continental Free Trade Area, for example, is one of the key highlights, and to see how to tap into opportunities available on the continent, and how the entire Commonwealth, the 54 nations that the Commissioner mentioned, could tap into these opportunities. So I think, specific to the Commonwealth, that will be one of the highlights in terms of trade between Rwanda and the rest of the countries.
Charles, Brenna, is there something you'd like to add?
I don't know. First of all, I think it's extremely ironical that the High Commissioner is celebrating Commonwealth and the beauty of the power of uniting when they have just left the EU. But that said, I think this goes a little bit beyond Rwanda, and the idea, and I believe this is part of what we're going to be talking about today, Gilbert and the rest of us, is how prepared we are and how we're going to reap from it. Especially, yesterday I had a meeting in the Ministry of Commerce that happens to share a building with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and I struggled to find parking because all the parking had been taken by the Rwandan diplomats. So there was a meeting that was taking place to brief the diplomatic community on CHOGM. I got a huge sense of relief, because I would have thought that the meeting would have been to brief the diplomatic community on coronavirus. So the air of hope and goodwill that is around CHOGM, I am extremely happy that it has not been overshadowed by the coronavirus scare. But that said, I think the conversation should really be around how we are going to benefit so much as a country, and how prepared we are, Diana. Yes.
Brenna?
I'm more interested in hearing from Gilbert.
Yes.
Looking at the Commonwealth values. Rwanda, of course, will be taking lead as chair. What will Rwanda be promoting specifically within the set of Commonwealth values.
So as you rightly said, at the end of CHOGM this year, Rwanda will be chair in office for the next 2 years,
Exactly.
from this year, 2020 to 2022. And this year's theme is following up on the London 2018 theme, delivering a common future, connecting, innovating, transforming. So Rwanda, basically what will be in those 2 years, the priority will be to what will have been agreed upon here in London. How are we delivering our common future as the 54 Commonwealth countries? A specific emphasis on the youth, on the role of the youth. And as you know, there will be also a youth forum here in Kigali, which will be the first event of the CHOGM week, starting on the 21st of June. So seeing what will be the specific role of the youth in delivering our common future. So among the values, I think one of the key priorities for Rwanda will be seeing the role of the youth in delivering a common future across the Commonwealth by empowering them, enabling them access to opportunities in various sectors, to put the youth at the forefront of the transformation of our...
So there's a big focus on youth.
Absolutely. There's a big focus on the youth, and the Youth Forum, which will be the first event for the week, will also, for example, feature the election of a new executive committee for the Commonwealth Youth Council. There is a past committee that was in place for the last 2 years. Now there will be election this coming June for a new group of young people to now take the lead into this transformation journey that we're talking about.
And have there been any activities leading up to the meeting that you've been engaged in terms of sensitizing Rwandans about this meeting and the opportunities that exist? Yeah.
So I could perhaps talk a bit more generally about activities, and we could focus on what you're doing in Rwanda. So we hosted in April 2018, and we've been chair in office since then. So we've been running a whole programme of activities since then. In fact, we have allocated £500 million towards different projects. I mean, there's a lot there. I think the real focus for us at the moment, in the run-up to this CHOGM, and I know it's got big support from Rwanda, is on climate change. So we are hosting the next big UN Climate Change Summit in November in Glasgow, COP26, 5 years after Paris, when countries really need to demonstrate how they have met their commitments. And we think that CHOGM is a big stepping stone for that. And it really helps that Commonwealth countries have shown leadership in this area. So if those Commonwealth countries can come together in June and say, actually, these are our what we call nationally determined contributions, this is what we're going to do, that then encourages the rest of the world to come forward. And I know that coming out of CHOGM, there are going to be lots of commitments, other commitments by Commonwealth countries on plastics, on global warming, on coal, on oceans. And I think there's a real opportunity there to take this momentum that we can see, not least from the youth, and really make some change.
Yes.
Specifically for Rwanda, in September last year, there was a event launching a countdown to CHOGM 2020 that our President and the Secretary General of the Commonwealth held in New York alongside the UN General Assembly. And since that time, there's been sensitization campaign for the population to know what's the Commonwealth in general, but also CHOGM, and what should be looking for during CHOGM. The most recent event to date was the Commonwealth Day that was celebrated on Monday, where we had a flag-raising ceremony, for example, at the Kigali Convention Center, which will host the opening ceremony of CHOGM 2020 in June. We had a reception with the Commonwealth ambassadors here in Kigali, where High Commissioner Joe and the Minister of Foreign Affairs spoke about the shared value. And there'll be a lot. For now, we are close to 100 days to CHOGM, so we have started a countdown and the communication campaign to sensitize people around the country about CHOGM, what to expect, what will be the benefits for Rwanda as a country, but also for individuals in the different walks of life.
And you know, while you're talking about that, I think the biggest question we all have is to do with preparations. And I know Rwanda has really made a mark in terms of the MICE strategy, in terms of hosting these huge global events. And the question is, what preparations, at least to do with infrastructure, can you maybe share with us? Is the city going to come to a standstill? What preparations are in store to make sure it's a seamless event?
Sure. As Royalty said, there are preparations in various fronts that are taking place in Kigali to host CHOGM 2020. Infrastructure is one of the major ones. There are roads being built, new connection roads around Kigali, roads innovated, but also the actual infrastructure that will host our guests, hotels being refurbished, new hotels coming up. And we are doing this as the host country for CHOGM 2020, but also in conjunction with the various Commonwealth countries who will attend. For example, the last month in Feb, we received over 30 delegations from 30 countries from the Commonwealth who are here to assess preparedness and work hand in hand with the host country, Rwanda, to see how to prepare for a successful summit. So yes, infrastructure is being worked on, hotels, roads and all that, but I think most important is also the quality of discussion that will be held in Kigali.
Yes, of course.
People coming to sit with us to discuss what are the key points on the agenda they want to share. So it's going hand in hand, the infrastructure, but also quality of the content of discussion that will be held here.
Would you like to add to that?
Yeah, I want to add something, and I don't want to preempt a conversation because I know on Friday there's a meeting with private sector players along preparing for the meeting for CHOGM and asking them in what ways they're going to be. But I think, and probably if this means anything to you, Gilbert, as a person who's wearing the government hat on this forum, the government of Rwanda's hat, I mean, Your Excellency. I think it's about seeing some of the areas in which we have not done too well when we have hosted big people. And I will probably pick out three. One by far is traffic flow. I would want that, and you've given us a picture that I hadn't really visualized, which is 100 days to go. The countdown's a very, very short period. Indeed, we have invested heavily in terms of alternative routes. If already, starting from Monday or tomorrow or next week, people can start using those roads, it will make a big difference. So that by the time the event is actually coming up, people are used to using alternative roads. But the other one is around entertainment. I wish every delegation that comes to Rwanda for CHOGM goes back broke. I want everybody to borrow money to be picked from the cab, from the airport when they get home. And the only way we are going to do that is if we provide a revenue, an different avenue, for people to spend. It's extremely painful. Just last week, I was told equipment from riders was confiscated. That is not so good. I don't know the detail, to be very honest. But the owner of the establishment did write to me a message, which I took with a pinch of salt. He wrote me a message to the effect that he was told that he's not allowed to play music beyond midnight. A few weeks prior to that, I think we actually did talk about it here on the show about Sky Lounge in Remera, and we can talk about entertainment and give quite a number of examples. These guys are not coming with their blankets. Of course, there are those who will want to sleep, and they will sleep. But let us eat their money, Gilbert. That is my point, right? Let's make sure they go back broke. Do everything you can at a government level to ensure there's an enabling environment for people to spend.
I mean, they're coming here for a week.
Yes.
But on that one, Charlie, you rightly said about the meeting this coming week with the private sector. So RCB, the Rwandan Convention Bureau, which is in charge of the government body in charge of the MICE strategy in general, has been working, actually, it's not only for CHOGM, it's been working with the private sector on maximizing the typical delegate who's coming for a conference in Kigali on what's the package. Beyond the 8 to 5 program that you have in a conference, what else can you do in Kigali? What else also can you do outside Kigali? Because we have a very good road network, transport network. What can you also see as an alternative on that? So what you're saying is what will be discussed, and that has been in discussion for a couple of months now, to see how to increase and how to make a typical delegate's experience in Kigali go beyond just the hours they'll spend in a conference room into the nightlife, into culture, into tourism, and all these other packages. So, as you're saying, hopefully by CHOGM you'll see a difference, and you'll be happy to come back and.
But also beyond CHOGM.
It
should be made.
I mean, there's a real opportunity to put Rwanda on the map here. So, still for a lot of people, Rwanda is associated with genocide. It's also now more and more associated with guerrillas. We all know there's a lot more, right? So it's about what people spend during the CHOGM week, but also that they come back. And I think if Rwanda does this well, you'll see a real increase in tourism and in conferencing for years to come.
Bernard, is there something you'd like to add?
I think beyond events, I would be interested in the effectiveness of the forum, as CHOGM. And I mean, for most people, Rwanda again being the place where meetings happen day in, day out, how do you ensure that the outcome of the meeting is actually impactful? Which takes me back to the Secretariat of the Commonwealth at the moment. We have seen that in recent years, the Secretariat is having funding issues. The major countries that have been funding the Secretariat have kind of withdrawn, reduced funding because of issues around the Secretariat, management of the Secretariat. Secondly, we are seeing that the post-Brexit situation in the UK remains unclear. So against that background, what I'm wondering is how do we ensure that when CHOGM happens, it's just not
another conference.
How do we gain so much more than just the event hosting?
You're absolutely right. I mean, I think in London, we were really clear we did not just want to be a talking shop. And I know Rwanda thinks the same. And that's why we made a big effort to have sort of really tangible outcomes coming out of CHOGM, why we put sort of £500 million into sort of follow-up. And I know that Rwanda's really keen as well to make sure that, those conclusions make a real difference to people's lives, whether it's trade, education, climate change, cybersecurity. There's a huge range of things there that can actually make a difference.
And to add on that, I think what Ben is saying, conversations have started. It won't be only a conversation happening during CHOGM week, but conversation has started at bilateral, but also at the level of the Commonwealth. In January this year, there was a meeting in London where our team from Rwanda, from the government of Rwanda, met with all high commissioners based in London to discuss about what are the tangible outcomes that we want to see come CHOGM in July. So the conversation is ongoing, and there is that big taking from the theme in 2018, which was delivering our common future, to now it was towards our common future. Now it's delivering our common future, seeing how do we take from what was agreed in London to where we are today, and now passing it on to the next chain office.
My main question is, how do you ensure that when you agree on, let's say, climate change, it's actually done? Does the Commonwealth have that kind of power to be able to leverage members? Because what I've seen so far, for instance, the Commonwealth has the ministerial working group, which kind of tries to enforce. We've seen in the past they focused, I think, on democracy and human rights. We've seen Zimbabwe, Sierra Leone, several countries, for instance, expelled. So what I would like to hear is, going forward, again, against an environment where countries are more independent, the reform process of the Commonwealth to a level where we feel that Kigali will be the turning point to say, look, as the Commonwealth, this is something that we acknowledge that the 1949 London Declaration does not make sense anymore. Are those the kind of discussions that you're having?
So I think there'll be discussions on the really important themes of the day. So you mentioned climate change. Actually, if you have those Commonwealth members making real commitments about how they're going to meet their Paris obligations, that's the result. And having those people together encourages everybody to do it. I mean, in London, we formed the Commonwealth Clean Oceans Alliance. It's not just about oceans, it's also about lakes and rivers. And since then, we've seen countries to commit to tackle marine pollution, for example. So there are really tangible results coming out.
Are you satisfied?
I think, Banna, to make you a little bit comfortable, as a business person, I had money. The ambassador just said, the High Commissioner said they're putting in 500 million pounds
to follow up.
For follow-up. So I think let's give it a benefit of that. There's money. They are going to put money in the follow-ups.
We have put money in the follow-up.
You have put money in the follow-up. But again, just a little bit away from political talk. And you see, business quite often outlives politics. Most of the time, it will outlive the politics. And I believe in the run-up, Gilbert, that you're talking about, the preparations, the delegations that meet everybody that you've been mentioning. For this to have a sustainable meaning, there has to be a huge emphasis towards deals. So the 500 million that you're talking about, I am hoping that it doesn't go towards seeing that a policy around, for argument's sake, child malnutrition is put to use, But if it is investing X amount, a British company wants to put in 10 million pounds in a renewable energy project, and they're facing any hurdles, money towards making sure that those hurdles are skipped, things like that, because deals and business deals have a huge multiplier effect that is really immeasurable, and I'm hoping, Gilbert, that really comes out very significantly across the 5 days or 6 days that the meeting will last for.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're very right, and I think one of the Commonwealth as a multilateral body also brings together countries which have bilateral relations, and one of the things is that the business forum will be also an opportunity for this, for policymakers to meet with potential investors, business people, for this kind of deals that you are talking about. If you are talking about, for example, the business deal between Rwanda and the trade between Rwanda and the United Kingdom could be taken as one example. But as you know, recently Rwanda has changed the visa regime towards the Commonwealth countries. And we see, among many other things, people will get the ease of access to travel and discover Rwanda, including potential tourists, visitors, and so on. So as you're saying, the discussion during that time, yes, but also the enabling factors that are being put in place today to allow that exchange of flow of people and trade and goods between Commonwealth countries as a multilateral body, but also bilaterally between the countries.
No. I think you see, diplomats are very cagey. A friend of mine once said diplomats are not liars; they are just economical with the truth. What Bana and I are saying is that at the end of CHOGM, we don't want to see an enabling environment. We don't want to see that policies have been signed. In the 100 days, we've actually, for crying out loud, we've known that we're going to host CHOGM. Yeah. We knew 2 years ago, right?
Yeah.
So in this run-up, I hope we have been doing something other than just going to receive delegations from Trinidad and Tobago and Sao Tome and Principe and what have you to say, hey, come and visit Rwanda. No. We actually hope that there are going to be deals. That's the point.
Yes. Business deals,
yes.
basically.
I don't want to be pessimistic, but I feel that if we knew this 2 years ago, the road shows should have happened 2 years, last year, most of last year, around these Commonwealth countries saying you can invest. And I know, RDB does this very well, but for me, what is of interest, and I insist, is what makes Commonwealth solutions binding, I think, and two, the more we talk about trade, that's fine, but trade does not work in isolation, So yes, you focus on trade. He talked about young people. How do you actually ensure that young people are involved in the decision making? Rwanda has done very well in terms of youth involvement. We have youth, young
leadership.
People. Yeah, but we know elsewhere in Africa, it's not the same. So if you're Rwanda and you're promoting this idea within African countries, how do you ensure that African countries actually involve young people?
I think to maybe answer your question, maybe let's steer it in this direction, High Commissioner and Gilbert, with regards to does Commonwealth have teeth? I think this is what you're asking, Berna. If you can give us some achievements from the UK being the chair in office from 2018 to 2020. Like take us back and let's see some of the achievements that have been in place since the last CHOGM.
So,
and I think, Berna, this may help answer your question.
You have to bear in mind, first of all, that the Commonwealth is a consensus-based organisation.
Of course.
Okay, so no one's forcing anyone to do anything. But that does mean that when they agree on things, it's because they want to and they mean it. So there is a tendency that once you've got that agreement, and sometimes it's not all 54 Commonwealth members, it might be smaller groups that say, actually, I'm interested in this, I'm going to take this forward. Another group does something else. So, but when they sort of when they're really keen to do it, then they'll take those forward. The sort of things that we've been working on. Around the time of CHOGM 18, cybersecurity was a really big issue. And it still is a big issue. But a lot of the money we put in was to actually supporting countries to improve their cybersecurity. So we've conducted workshops across the Commonwealth, including in Rwanda. We've basically we have a fellowship programme, so there's sort of mentoring of cyber experts, and I think we've just, in general, sort of brought up the expertise within the Commonwealth on what's a really important issue. And going back to trade, I mean, you know, I know we talked about deals. It's not really about the business deals. There are other venues that do that, other organisations and forums. But what the Commonwealth is good at is trying to reduce trade barriers. So we're helping support countries, for example, to be able to implement the WTO trade facilitation agreement. Sounds very technical, but trade facilitation is really important to be able to allow the free flow of trade as easily and as smoothly and as efficiently as possible. And something else we've supported is a Commonwealth Standards Network, and that basically means that every country has can be confident that it is meeting the standards to be able to export its products. So things like that, say technical, but actually really important for supporting trade.
And these are things that in the last 2 years following CHOGM 2018,
absolutely.
These are issues that you have focused on. With
yes.
Are there tangible outcomes? Like you've
I think, I mean, I think the rate of trade between Commonwealth countries and from Commonwealth countries continues to increase. I think we would say that the cybersecurity and the awareness of that and the expertise has increased. The other thing, I mentioned before the Commonwealth Clean Oceans Alliance. So I think that really, that there was a real sort of focus on single-use plastics. There's a lot of films at the time of this wildlife being entrapped in plastic, and I think in that year that really captured the public's imagination. So through that alliance, countries have pledged and really delivered on them to actually stop single-use plastics or to clean up their oceans. I mean, Rwanda, of course, is a great example of this. But each country decides how it wants to take those forward. At the end of the day, it's up to them how they want to do it. But there's no point in them joining and signing up to these things unless they really mean it.
Yeah, and I think we'll see after this program, Berna, and I get where you're going with the questions. I think we'll see these tangible outcomes, you know, in the next by 2022, hopefully.
Yes,
Charles.
Yes, Berna said something that just tickled my mind around involvement, because she mentioned youth involvement and specialist group. And one specialist group that comes to my mind is the Rwandan diaspora in the UK, especially among other Commonwealth countries. And I'm wondering, maybe Gilbert, you're best placed to tell me how this is being done, if at all it is. Whether it is the Rwanda Global Diaspora Network or how our foreign missions are working with those specialist group across the diaspora, how involved are they? Because some of them are in a kind of limbo. Are they British? Are they Rwandese? Their kids have been born there. They've been brought up there. Do they feel this, or they think that it's just another MICE event that is taking so many people to their mother country? You know, to what extent are they being mobilized so that there's a sense of involvement? And
you're right. For this particular mobilization for the Rwandan community abroad, now as we call them, it's not only in the UK but in all Commonwealth countries. We have a big community in Canada, in places like in India, especially students who are there, Australia, New Zealand, and it's done in showing them opportunities where they are, what they're doing already, but also back at home, investing back at home. There is a team at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, a whole division in charge of Rwandan community abroad. And this kind of opportunities, that, as you're saying, it's not only a MICE event, but it's also showing the link between the the event that's taking place in Rwanda, in this case CHOGM, and where they are and how they can maximize on the possibility. Talking of the United Kingdom, for example, since 2017, Rwanda has launched direct flights to London Gatwick. So this in terms of direct connection between Rwanda and the UK for diaspora to come back, those who want to invest here, those who want to have their business here, or also those who want to establish their businesses to sell Rwandan products in the UK, as a very specific example of what is being done. The same in India, for example, where Rwanda flies. So there are all these kind of opportunity around the Commonwealth that are that could be very specific for the Rwandan community living there, but also for nationals of those countries who can come and invest in Rwanda.
I think
I don't see anything specific being done. I think to say that Rwanda is going to Gatwick. I have a friend who lives in Crawley. Crawley is literally a stone throw away from Gatwick. He has no idea at all about CHOGM happening in Rwanda. He's Rwandese with his family. I think these are assumptions that are being done, Gilbert. It has to be very deliberate. Unless you don't expect any outcome from the Rwandan diaspora who live in the Commonwealth countries, and that's why I think sending them Rwanda is enough.
But I
think just to react to that, I think if your friend is not aware of CHOGM, then perhaps they haven't seen the relevance of CHOGM.
No, it's because they have been told we've given you Rwanda, that's enough.
No, I feel that what is important is to showcase the opportunities that exist. And I think more importantly now with Brexit, I think, and that was my other question to you, what do we see as the role of the modern Commonwealth, post-Brexit? What is the UK, trying to do with the Commonwealth?
So, first of all, it's not for the UK to do something with the Commonwealth, so we're one of 54 members. I would say that now we've left the EU, the Commonwealth and those other organisations we believe we belong to are even more important. So you've seen that over the last 2 years with the amount of programmes that we've put into the Commonwealth, the amount of funds we've allocated, the real interest and I hope the leadership that we've shown in the Commonwealth, because we think it's a network that can really deliver.
Does this mean more money going forward?
It's Gilbert's turn for the money next.
That's true. I want us to just quickly go to our Twitter feed because the next question I was going to ask, I'm seeing it coming a lot on our Twitter feed, and we have the first tweet, and this is from Richard, who says, "We can only wish this COVID-19 ends within a few weeks as we gear up for CHOGM 2020. Trade sessions will be an opportunity to learn from the experiences of Brexit as we enter the AFCTA. And the next tweet, again, is also on this issue, and this is a question to our guest panelists. And Bonaparte says that we all look forward to this major event, but wonder if this epidemic will not be a hindrance. On climate change, what is the position of the Commonwealth on the Paris Agreement, especially after a major signatory, the US, withdrew from the pact? Yes. So I think this question, I think what we want to know, Gilbert and High Commissioner, what measures are in place for this global event in the light of global events that are being cancelled due to, the COVID-19, the coronavirus? What measures are in place? Is this something that, the organizers have thought of? And what's being done to address this?
Yeah. Charlie mentioned the diplomatic briefing that took place yesterday at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. It was about the coronavirus, Rwanda's preparedness on coronavirus.
And so it wasn't CHOGM?
No, it was not CHOGM.
It was not CHOGM, it was on the screen. On the screen as you enter the ministry, there was a big thing.
No, that's
about
a banner
CHOGM.
that is there.
That's the Commonwealth Day, probably, wasn't it?
It's a banner for CHOGM. So it was about Rwanda's preparedness, and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs shared updates on Rwanda's preparedness with the diplomatic community.
That gives me a great sense of relief, because I saw the Zimbabwean flag there, and the High Commissioner just said Zimbabwe is no longer.
No, it's Bena.
It's but it's rejoining, no?
It's applying to rejoin. Yes.
Rejoining, yeah.
So specifically on COVID-19 and CHOGM, the government of Rwanda is in close collaboration with the Secretariat in London, the Common Secretariat, and closely monitoring the spread of the coronavirus. As Charles mentioned, it has now been declared
global pandemic.
Yes. So we are observing the spread of the virus, but the health and well-being of the delegates to CHOGM is our utmost priority. Be it the government of Rwanda, being the Secretariat in London, I guess all the member countries. So we are monitoring and will apply directives based on guidance from the WHO, as well as after consultation with the member states.
I don't think I've got anything more to add on COVID, apart from, I share your viewers' hopes that, of course, this is not going to last for a long time. I think Rwanda's taking really sensible steps to prevent the pandemic here. June is still some time off. We've still got a few months. If Rwanda decides to postpone, it'll be a postponement. We'll be back within months, I'm sure, but I know that you'll take the right decision, whatever that might be. Perhaps I could address the issue about the Paris Agreement. Of course, I think we all regret that the US has withdrawn from that. They are one member, okay, they're a big member, but that doesn't mean we sit back and do nothing. I think what's also interesting in the US is that a number of states and cities really support the climate change agenda, and they are coming together. I'm sure they'll be in Glasgow for the Climate Change Summit, because they want to demonstrate what they can make a difference themselves. And so the fact that the US has withdrawn is disappointing, but it's not the end of the world.
It's not the end of the world. Yes, to our viewer. And the next tweet is from Richard, and this tweet says that beyond the benefits of infrastructural, tourism, business deals, etc., for me the biggest achievement for Rwanda is the vote of confidence given to us by the 54 member states to host CHOGM 2020. You can never get a better branding than this, given our history. Absolutely, I agree with him. On that, Brenna, you're quiet about that.
No, I mean, it's a fact.
Yes,
it's a fact. And also, remember, Rwanda bid for this.
Yes.
So that means it knew that it could actually deliver.
And carry it on.
Huge vote of confidence.
Absolutely.
And you've got the experience, of course.
Yes,
so that's great.
Over the last years. The next tweet is from Jean René, and Jean asks that I'm very happy that the youth has been included in the agenda of CHOGM. I would like to ask which incentives and platforms have been put in place for the youth to be aware and part of these opportunities. Gilbert, maybe you'd like to reiterate what you said earlier on in the show?
There is what I mentioned, of course, the youth, the Commonwealth Youth Forum, which will be the kick-off event for the CHOGM week, which will start on 21st of June. But the National Youth Council of Rwanda is, with the Ministry of Youth, of course, Youth and Culture, are the lead institution on this. And for now, for the last couple of months now, I'm in consultation with the youth on getting their views and seeing what are the views that they want to push forward towards this forum. So they're gathering from all over the country views from the youth and what they want to push forward. Of course, one of the key opportunities for youth is also connecting with youth from all over the Commonwealth. We know that youth in Rwanda is around 70% of the population, but almost similarly in the Commonwealth, it's around 60% of the population. So the youth are really the driving force of whatever big decisions will be taken during the CHOGM to be put into place. And one last thing is that the outcomes of the youth forum, the youth representative will have an opportunity to discuss and to present these outcomes to the head of government who will be present, so which I think is quite an important platform for them to express their views.
I think, I mean, the youth forum is really important. I think it's also important, though, that we don't just put the youth in a box, because they have interests across the board. Whatever the theme is, they will have some thoughts and interests in this. And so that's important that they're involved in all the different stages of CHOGM. So one of the things we did, for example, on climate change, recently in Addis, we helped convene some youth activists from across Africa, including 2 Rwandans, who talked about climate change, what it means for them, came to some discussions which will feed into CHOGM. And now they're back in Rwanda, trying to sort of create some momentum, spread the word. So they have a fundamental interest in climate change, and I think that their voice will really be heard at CHOGM.
I want us to just quickly go back to this chair in office, what it means. And the Commonwealth, the CHOGM 2018, the chair in office was the UK, which is now going to hand over from the UK Prime Minister to the Rwandan President, which will host this chair in office until 2022. So if you can give us an idea, for the ordinary person, for us, the panelists who are here, what does this mean for Rwanda? What expectations should people have for Rwanda when it assumes chair in office following CHOGM in June this year?
Sure. So what the 5 key important things that we'll be discussing during CHOGM, as the High Commissioner said, will be trade, governance and rule of law, ICT and innovation, youth and environment. And this will be discussed across all the 4 forums: youth, business, women and civil society in their People's Forum, but also at the level of head of government. And whatever agreements will be taken here, it's the role for the chair in office to have these decisions, as Charlie was asking, how do they get implemented at all levels for Rwanda to do a follow-up, proper follow-up into how are these decisions taken during CHOGM 2020 being implemented and hand over now to the next host of CHOGM 2022. So I see Rwanda's role as the host for this year, when it comes time for us to be chair in office after CHOGM in June, is to really closely look into how the big decisions that have been taken here get implemented at all levels.
At all levels. Would you like to weigh in on that?
Ultimately, it'll be for Rwanda to decide what it wants to prioritise. And most chairs in office, they'll have a few key priorities. You can't do everything. My guess would be that Rwanda will prioritise climate change, where you have such a good track record. And we're looking forward to your support in the run-up to the climate summit. And we know you're a big fan of free and fair trade, and you're a real driver of the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. So I expect that you'll be also taking that forward with the Commonwealth. But I know there are probably other things as well that you'll want to take forward because they're of great interest to your people.
Absolutely.
Charles and Bernard, do you have expectations of Rwanda when it assumes chair in office for the next 2 years, following CHOGM?
I have huge expectations because my president is a no-nonsense man and he likes to leave a mark. So that's where my biggest expectations come. When he was chair of AU, he left a mark with the CFTA. So that's where my enormous expectations come from, that President Kagame will leave a mark to the world. That's number one. Number two is really around the Commonwealth organization, not to be perceived as just another Muzungu organization. By virtue of the fact that it will be headed by a senior African statesman, I think that's where my optimism comes from. Yes.
Bernard?
I think beyond trade, accountability, governance, it would be good, I think, for Rwanda to promote that. We've seen what it's doing in terms of promoting accountability, so if we can see that reinforced, transparency, corruption, human rights, I think these are issues that would be good to highlight during the membership, the chairmanship.
Yeah. We're coming to the end of our show, and I just wanted to know if, before we go back to our Twitter feed, if there are any closing remarks that you'd like to make. Over to you, Gilbert.
Just to once again reiterate that the government of Rwanda is working towards making CHOGM 2020 a successful CHOGM. This is the year 2020, a very big milestone for us as a country, as Rwanda, and it's quite an honor for us to be welcoming this important gathering. Just to also reiterate that there is a local CHOGM 2020 secretariat that is in place now, that is working full-time.
And the secretariat is housed at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs?
So, no, the secretariat of CHOGM 2020 is multi-institutions. It has various institutions, of course coordinated by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, but has representatives from various institutions. It has various members from different government institutions who are looking at different portfolios in terms of content, the 5 key thematics that I talked about, but also infrastructure and readiness in all aspects. So it's has been in place since late last year, and is working full time to make sure that we deliver on successful.
I'm curious to knowing who is heading it.
Yes.
It's under the coordination of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs.
So the Minister of Foreign Affairs
heads the steering committee.
got quite a bit on his plate.
High Commissioner?
No, just to say, when I've seen this task force in action,
Yes.
they are very committed, very determined, very enthusiastic. I think they'll deliver a great summit. Looking forward to it.
Yes. For me, two things really about CHOGM. One is CHOGM is going to leave Rwanda a very different country. I want to pick two specific areas. One on infrastructure. There's this particular road that goes up, it drives through Mulindi, the road to Gasoji, and ends up in Rusororo. I've seen it being widened, raised, tarmacked. I thank you, Ambassador.
Is that where your house is?
No, my house is not there. But on a lighter note, I am looking forward to, I am told there will be a big cricket match. I hope COVID-19 does not come in the way of Rwanda beating the Commonwealth at cricket.
Brenna, any last words you'd like to share?
Yeah, I think it's a great opportunity, and I think for especially for the business community, and I don't think they should wait for government to come to them. They should be approaching government and saying, what can we do, or this is what I can offer, because the Commonwealth is a very old institution. The information is out there on what CHOGM looks like, so people shouldn't wait. Secondly, I hope that Rwanda will be able to successfully lobby and sell some of these values around protecting the environment, also rule of law, of the law, because in most countries, if you look around the Commonwealth, it's still problematic. So it will be good to see Rwanda at least use the chairmanship to be able to influence some of these things, accountability, like it did with the AU.
The AU.
Yeah, with the AU.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much for joining us on the CHOGM 2020. We're really looking forward to it, for sure. And yes, like everyone is saying, we hope that the coronavirus is not going to hinder, as it has for most parts of the world, these global events that have been happening. To our viewers, please keep the conversation going using #TheSquareRW. To our partners, Uzi Collections and Bourbon Coffee, thank you for always being a part of The Square. And also, thank you for watching us. Have a good night and see you again next week.
nishimiye kuba ari kumwe namwe baye ikaze. Yes, umutumirwa wacu uyu munsi
kugira ngo mudusangize mutugaragarize inyungu.
Ukujya mu kazi ni nako wagiye no ku ishuri.
Ubwacu twihaye akazi cyane cya mbere. Icya kabiri turimo turatanga icyizere ku rubyiruko ko byose bishoboka kandi tugateza imbere igihugu cyacu.
Just yesterday